Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Deathnote Part 1, Episode 7, Overcast. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief summary of exactly what happens within this episode. Light ties up his loose end with Naomi, while Elle and the task force iron out their work process going forward. So after I rewatch the episode, I go and rank each episode against each other. We rank on a mostly objective list, which is absent emotion, and then on a personal list, which is entirely emotion. So as usual, we'll start with the mostly objective rank values, and today we'll change it up a bit and start with the negatives. So there's only one negative I felt in this episode, at least that fell into this chart, and that was that I felt there was a little bit of character regression as it pertains to Light. And also a little bit with Naomi. So starting off, Light, not even considering the possibility that Naomi might have given him a fake name. And this is given the clues that we as the audience were able to pick up on that he somehow missed. And we want to be reminded that this character is meant to be a genius, meant to be above average intelligence, very manipulative, very clever, very strategic. That is what the premise that was a setup in the initial beginning of the series is for this character. So obviously we have Ryuk's laughter. Now, we as the audience only see Ryuk in snippets, and yet we as the audience can pick up on the fact that him laughing is not a good sign because it means he's having a good time, which means something's going on. So right away, Light, as soon as Ryuk started laughing, should have had his guard up. Should have been red flag, alarm bells going off. He doesn't have this happen. He lives with him 24/7. He should know Rook's personality even better than we do as an audience, and yet he doesn't pick up on it. So, a little bit not in line with his character. Second red flag, of course, is that Naomi, as they are talking, indicates basically that she also is incredibly intelligent. She's put together clues from information that she alone has that has gotten her further in figuring out Kira's MO than even Elle has. She's clearly a strong opponent. And then when you combine that with Ryuk's earlier laughter, it should have been even more alarm bells going off that this person's really clever. She knows how Kira kills. She knows that he can control people even without heart attacks. Clearly, she probably gave a fake name. I feel like that's not a difficult step to take. Once you know how Kira kills with a name and a face, using a fake name is the next logical step. So he should be able to have considered the possibility at least, even if he didn't believe it or he didn't do anything with it at first. The fact that he never even considered the possibility, I feel, is a bit of a regression to his character premise from the start. And then we also have Naomi, who uses the fake name, who is very clever, who talks to Light about the clues she's put together, who talks about wanting to be about potentially being able to get in direct contact with Elle. And yet when Light then says, I'm part of the task force, I'll give your information to Elle so that he can contact you. Show me your valid ID. She just hands it over. Like completely trusting. And I understand that he is a high school student and people would think that a high school student would necessarily be the one. But at the same time, she also knew that Ray was following the family members of the police officers and had to show one of them their IDs. Why not a high school student? I feel like she should have also had alarm bells a little bit with Light. And, you know, I just feel like she was doing so well. And then, like, at the last moment, she gave up. But of course, in order for this episode to work out with Light tying up his loose end, Naomi had to die. That means Naomi had to give up her ID. So they had to do these things. But I did feel like minor regression. I'm counting them together as a -1. And then we have our positives for the episode. We have our single arc supporting character development, which is essentially Watari. So far, Watari's been covered head to toe in black, carrying around the laptop, barely speaking, That's all we knew about him. Very shaded and mysterious. This episode is when we see Watari revealing that he is in fact working with El and is mostly his butler, and he is the one who comes in, he reveals his face, and he hands out the spy gear. And mostly the character development that I find is the fact that we get to see his face for the first time in the series, and that is worth 1 point, which cancels out our negative. So we're now starting back fresh at a 0 out of 10. And then the next positive that applies is a resolved subplot. Basically, Naomi I consider to be a subplot. Her and Light's little adventure as she tries to get in on the investigation but fails. And that obviously is resolved in this episode. And so that is worth 2 points, which makes that this episode overall a 2 out of 10 episode on the mostly objective ranking. So as a reminder of the list so far on the mostly objective ranking, we have in first place was Rebirth, second Confrontation, third Tactics, fourth Pursuit, fifth Unraveling, Dealings, and then this episode is in last place with Overcast. And so with this personal ranking, I do think that I am mostly in line with our objective list. It wasn't the strongest episode in the series so far or even going forward. I think it was fun that the task force kind of gets some spy gear. They get fake IDs from Elle. They also get these nifty little belts that they can press a button to call Watari and will also receive messages from Watari. And obviously it's really cute. And then we have a little bit of a funny moment where Matsuda is kind of like, oh my gosh, this feels like we're superheroes or special forces. This is so cool. And of course the chief scolds him, but I thought that was a cute little moment in the episode. Most of the tension in the episode is kind of built by Light struggling to figure out how he's going to get Naomi's name, especially when she's very reluctant and starts to kind of cool off towards him as they continue back towards the police station. But even then, it's mostly in his head. It's basically on screen, what you're watching is two people walking and talking. Or actually not even talking because he's thinking and we're just listening to his thoughts throughout most of this, while Ryuk kind of chuckles in the background, offers him the ideal again, which he of course declines. But it feels a lot like in this episode, he got lucky. It wasn't necessarily that he's clever or he's smart, but that he just got lucky. There's a near miss with Aizawa who, basically Elle forgets, oh wait, after they hand out the belts and everything, he's like, who's at task force right now? Oh, nobody? Oh, well, we want to have one person there. Going forward, of course, it's too late because the person who is coming to see someone from the task force is obviously already met Light. But that feels like it was an oversight on Elle's part, an oopsie. And so now there's that near miss. Aizawa is then sent back to the headquarters so that should somebody arrive, he can greet them, except she's already come and gone. They're not going to be able to, and that's just the luck of Light. It was also luck that Light happened to deliver the clothes when Naomi was there. It's luck that he finally figures out how to get the name by claiming to be part of the task force. It doesn't feel like it was necessarily purposeful, the resolution to this episode. It feels like a lot luck played a huge factor in it, not necessarily the cleverness or genius or characters themselves. But the positive, and the reason I like it better than the last episode, is the very final scene. Now, the very final scene isn't able to lift it up too much, but it is able to lift it just enough. So we have basically the snow starting to fall down, and just as Aizawa is coming up to Light and Naomi speaking, he opens his umbrella, blocking their faces from view, so he can't even be a witness that Light spoke to Naomi if someone was to ask, because he can't see them because he's opened his umbrella to block the snow. We then get that epic orchestral music kind of playing as Light gets the ID from Naomi and is able to fill in the death note. It then switches to this really sad and melancholy music as she's kind of standing there. Aizawa passes And then she asks Light why he keeps looking at his watch, and he says, "Because I'm Kira." And her face immediately changes. She looks stricken, but the 10 seconds are up, and she then turns to leave. He then basically says, "Oh, my dad's phone's on now. Do you want to talk to the headquarters still?" And she says she has nothing to say. And then he asks, her to do something, and she says there's something that she needs to do, and obviously walks away, going off to complete her orders, which is basically to die quietly where no one will find her. And I think that that scene was incredibly well done. I wouldn't call it like an emotional impact or anything because on the one hand, while with Ray Pember it was tragic because it was his last day looking, Light would have gotten off scot-free. He didn't actually have to kill him. In the case of Naomi, she did need to die. She was on a mission. She had all of the information she needed. So it was kind of like an inevitability, so it didn't really impact as much. And also the fact that she handed her ID over to Light instead of sticking to her original plan of going to the legitimate headquarters, giving her name and face to L so that he could decide if he wanted to speak to her, which was just objectively a better plan than giving your ID to a high school student, kind of limits the sympathy. It was kind of like it needed to happen. It's kind of her own fault. My sympathy is limited, so it didn't count for the emotional impact, but it was really well done overall. So I ranked it a 3 out of 10, and that brings the personal ranking list to so far to in first place we have Rebirth, Pursuit, Confrontation, Tactics in fourth place, Unraveling, this episode Overcast is in sixth place, and then Dealings was last place so far. And that brings us to our final little segment of the series ranking so far. In the series ranking, we rank each of the parts against each other. So part 1 has 26 episodes. That means that there is a maximum total score of 260. That's possible. And adding 2 to the mostly objective score, we now get 47 out of 260 so far. And then on the personal side, we're adding 3, which gives us 40 out of 260 so far. And with that, we've now ranked and rewatched Death Note Part 1, Episode 7, Overcast. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.